worldwide affairs have a place in your day, this is the place you will want to stay. The Ron Bobb-Semple International Podcast with your host, world-renowned voice of Garvey and global news commentator, Ron Bobb-Semple.
Greetings and welcome to the Ron Bobb-Semple International Podcast. We will be addressing global issues that impact our day-to-day lives.
On June 10th, 2021, the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Dr. Mohammed Ifraan Ali, declared the South American nation a Level 2 national disaster because of the countrywide flooding resulting from incessant rainfall over the past 4 months. However, are there multiple disasters existing in that country? According to my special guest, quote, disaster and crisis have always been common in Guyana. In our moments of calm, whether consciously or subconsciously, we are in a state of constant preparedness for the next chapter in our book of trials and errors, unquote. She's a writer whose work has been produced for the stage, television, film, radio, and print media. Sister Mosa Mathifa Telford, greetings and welcome to the Ron Bobb-Semple International Podcast.
Greetings, Mr. Bobb-Semple, and thanks for having me.
You have something in common with UC Guyana, Pauline Baird, and David Hines. They have close ties with Buxton. Buxton Village was established on the East Coast by 128 Africans who had been freed from chattel slavery on August 1st, 1838. They pooled their money and bought a 500-acre plantation for $50,000. The village comprises one of the largest communities of mainly African descendants in the country. What was it like for you, Sister Mosa, growing up in this unique area of Guyana?
Growing up in Buxton was a pleasure. I always tell people I had a wonderful childhood. What I remember mostly about growing up in Buxton is having a large community of other children to play with. You know, when you come home from school in the afternoon, you're playing football and cricket and so on in the field. Community activities, things that stand out in my mind are activities like 1st of August, you know, that was really an exciting time in the village, getting ready to be a part of the cultural presentation or just being a spectator. Those were really, really wonderful days. When things started changing, I would say like in the early 2000s when we had all that stuff that started happening in the village. But I always say I had a wonderful childhood growing up in Buxton, and I'm always proud of my village.
Were you always encouraged to participate with what's going on in the village?
Like I mentioned, 1st of August activities. At that time, I was active in the church as well. So I did a lot of activities in the church. And then as a teenager, I was in a youth group with the same brother, UC Guyana, that you mentioned. It was through that group that I actually wrote my first play that was staged. And from then we held a number of concerts and stuff like that. So I was always very much involved in activities in the village. It's nice reflecting on those days, actually.
Who or what inspired you to be a writer?
I say that I was born to be a writer because it's just something that came naturally to me when I was around like 7 years old. You know, I just started writing. Sometimes I wonder if it had anything to do with the passing of my father, because my father passed when I was 7, and it was around that time that I also started writing. So sometimes when I think, I say to myself, I wonder if I started writing as a way of coping with the loss of my father. But my father was also a writer, so I think it's just something that passed down, you know, in the genes or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I always said this is what I was born to do. I can't imagine doing anything in my life. It's just organic to me to just write. So yeah.
The current flooding in the country has caused a lot of concern, what with the loss of livestock, spoilage of produce, food prices rising with the water. Thankfully, not many lives lost, if any. In my opening remarks, I asked the question, are there multiple disasters currently in Guyana? Are there?
Yes, there are to be. I mean, the flooding it's a natural disaster, but I think a lot of disaster has to do with the mentality of the people, as I would have mentioned in my column. Not in those exact words, I believe. To me, the biggest disaster is the unwillingness of the Guyanese people to change their way of thinking, especially when it comes to politics and all of that. We want to see Guyana progress. We want to see this great nation that, we've been promised since when? Since independence. But the thinking of the people remains the same. A lot of the people don't hold their politicians accountable. If the people I like are in government, I'm not going to criticize them. I'm not going to call out anything that they do, and vice versa. So to me, that is our greatest disaster. The fact that, we are so mentally enslaved. Not all of us, some of us. I would probably say the majority of Guyanese are just kind of mentally enslaved. We don't realize that if we come together as one, instead of, having this political divide where you're over there and I'm over there, if we come together as one and we hold our politicians accountable, whether it's government or opposition or whatever the case may be, then is when we will start to see where Guyana can be and where it can go. But no, we refuse. So that is why I believe the biggest disaster is the thinking of the people, our minds.
Any other disaster that you would want to mention?
As I mentioned in my column as well, what's going on with the vaccination and that kind of thing, that is turning out to be a bit of a disaster, I think, because a lot of people are worried. I don't think that there's anything wrong with the Sputnik V vaccines or anything, but a lot of people are worried because they took these vaccines and now they're finding out that the vaccines are approved by the World Health Organization. And then also there's a case where a lot of people would have taken the first dose and they don't know when they're getting the second one. And it's like people are asking for answers and you're not getting the answers that you need. So that's another disaster at the moment that we're dealing with. As I also mentioned in my column, food prices have been going up since it's been a few months now. And the thing is with that, and most people haven't gotten a raise in their salary or whatever. You're going in the market and three eggplants or what we call belanger is $500 for three. Last week I went to the market, I paid $500 for three. And I'm thinking to myself, how are people supposed to survive? How are we making it? These are things that, yeah, we're complaining about them in our small circles. We're talking about them, but nobody is, I haven't seen any protests or anything like that. That's another part of our issue as Guyanese. We are always talking about the issues in small circles, but when it comes to coming together, being a collective and putting pressure on whoever we need to put pressure on to do better by the people, we don't do it. So that's also something that's going on right now. I would also say because of COVID, me being a parent and my children have been home since April of last year. And as a parent who I work from home, but I also have to do my cooking and my housework and all of that, and also be with my children in online school, that's been quite difficult as well. My children are in private school, but I know also there are a lot of children in public school. I've heard from people that their child hasn't really done anything since last year. I've heard stories that, the teachers just send work by WhatsApp and, the children are on their own and stuff like that. So another disaster is that a lot of children, because of COVID, are being left behind as well. So that's some of the things that we're dealing with.
I'd just like to go back to something you mentioned a few moments ago, Sister
Yeah.
Mosa. You mentioned in your weekly column, Think on That, quote, the recent chapters involving the Sputnik coronavirus vaccine, the floods, and the rising cost of living are concerning. What are
Yes.
some of the other concerns that you are hearing from your fellow Guyanese? I know you mentioned a couple of them a moment ago.
Yes, I did. What else can I add to that? People are concerned about the future of the country, things to do with like the oil. A lot of people are saying that they are not seeing any benefit from the oil. What is Guyana getting from the oil? A lot of people, of course, are concerned about the deals, the oil deals, saying that it's not in the best interest of the Guyanese people. A lot of people are concerned as well that in a few years, will this country still belong to Guyanese? Because what we're seeing a lot of foreign investors coming and so on and so forth. So where will that leave us? Are we getting the best out of what we can get from the fact that this oil belongs to us? And you know about the oil curse, right? So I think with all this rising cost of living and all of that, probably we have begun to see a bit of that as I think I mentioned in my column as well. So yeah, that's some of the other concerns. And also there's always the concerns about the racial tensions that are happening in the country. I can remember immediately after the elections last year, I had a situation where I was in the supermarket. I'm coming down the aisle and these three people are blocking my way. These three people of another ethnic group, they're blocking my way and they see me coming down the aisle and they see me standing there for like 30 seconds and nobody is moving. So I'm like, am I invisible? Right. So now I decide, okay, I'm just going to try to, maneuver my way through them or whatever. And the guy jumps up and jumps into my face and starts to curse me out. And well, of course, I did not back down. Nobody's going to jump in my face and curse me and they're not going to say anything. I'm standing there and it's like, you guys don't see me, you don't respect me. And what's funny about that, when I told a couple of my friends about that incident, some of them also said that they had a few issues as well that involved stuff like that. Yeah, so the racial tensions, of course, are another thing. And for me personally, I don't know why we have a racist stew in Ghana. I really, it makes absolutely no sense to me. Again, that goes back to the politics because a lot of the politicians, they encourage this kind of thing because they benefit from it. That's another disaster that we face in Guyana.
Why do you feel that there is still a race issue in Guyana?
I've had conversations over the years where people say, oh, this only happens during the election period and stuff like that, because we have two parties where the PPP is predominantly supported by Indian Guyanese and what is now the APNU AFC is predominantly supported by African Guyanese. There's always been that kind of split there. Right? When it started, I wasn't born in the 60s or the 70s or whatever, but I've heard stories about when we had like conflicts in the 60s and stuff like that, where people were killed on both sides. I've heard stories about that. My mom would have told me some of those stories. Sometimes I think a lot of people haven't forgiven each other for what happened during that period. And also, I can say that a lot of parents, they continue to teach their children this stuff, because I can also tell you about an experience that my daughter had when she was attending, not the private school that she's attending now, but another private school. She was 6 or 7 years old. And one of the other children of another ethnic group said to her one day, dark brown people are ugly. When I picked her up the afternoon, she was very upset and she said, this child said this to me. And then for the week, when me or her father would pick her up from school, she kept pointing the child and said, this is the child that told me this. So I'm thinking to myself, how could a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old know to say this to another child if he's not hearing things at home, right? A lot of the families, that is what they teach their children. Oh, that you're different, or that you're better than a certain group or whatever. So it's a combination of issues, but I think the politics, it makes it worse.
One of the topics on the global arena is the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
More than 450 Guyanese have died as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is frightening, with a population in Guyana of less than 800,000 people.
Yeah, it is. I don't really know what's going on. If you look back at last year, to me, it seemed like we had COVID somewhat under control. And what is funny too about the fact that we're now at 450 deaths. They said that over 100,000 or over 200,000 people have been vaccinated so far. So really, we're supposed to start seeing a decline, I would think. We've heard reports coming out from the COVID hospital. I don't want to repeat some of the things that I've heard because I don't know if they're true or if they're just rumors. I don't really know what's going on with that, to be quite honest. I don't. And I don't want to just make any assumptions, but like you said, it's frightening. I'm just hoping that we start to flatten the curve. What I'm really sad about is that most of the people that have died, these are like older people, our grandparents, our great aunts and stuff. They're just dying. And it's just like last year, we had a curfew in place from 6 to 6. A lot of people were staying indoors and stuff like that. Me, for one, I never really went out. I just used to go to the supermarket and back home because, we were quite fearful then. But now I think what has happened is that a lot of people, they just don't care anymore. Because remember, as people, we're not meant to just be locked in our homes all the time. We're social beings. So when you have people locking up for all this time, eventually they'll just, where you said, they'll just get fed up and they just want to break loose and do whatever. So the fact that we haven't had any sort of lockdown or anything within the last few months, although people have been dying as much as they are, but I don't know. I'm just hoping that soon we'll start to flatten the curve and life can be returned to somewhat of a norm and.
Just to add to what you mentioned about the vaccinations, these
Yeah.
vaccines, it is reported, have not been approved by the World Health Organization, the WHO.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people did not know that. And so, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are worried about it. I don't know, maybe there was just some desperation on the part of the government, just to start the vaccination process. So whether they were approved already or not, I think I saw something that Guyana, along with 74, I think 74 other countries are using the Sputnik V. So, like I mentioned before, you hope that the vaccines won't cause any adverse effects or anything. And, they won't come out later and say that, oh, something was wrong with them or whatever. So, people just have to hope for the best. But yeah, we also, I think when they first started the vaccination process, they were using the AstraZeneca, which is one that is approved by the WHO. Sputnik V, from the research I did for the column I wrote last weekend, they were supposed to submit some data, I think, on June 10th, and they failed to do that. So now they might not be approved until the end of the year and all of that. And now we have this issue also with where Guyana sourced its vaccines, not directly from Russia and all that. It's a lot. It's
It
too
is
much.
it is a
It's
lot.
a lot.
It's a lot,
Yes.
and you made a rather profound statement in your article, and I'll quote
Mm-hmm.
again. If people's immune systems are weakened because they are starving, the threat of disease is still a threat, whether they're
Yes.
vaccinated or not. Here, the people are expected to wear poverty as a badge of honor. It is nonsense. It is not the way we are meant to live,
Yeah,
unquote.
and I'm a very health conscious person. My diet is mostly plant-based and I do yoga and I meditate and all that kind of thing. So I think what they have been preaching is, oh, just get the vaccine, get the vaccine, get the vaccine and everything will be okay. But I think along with a message of vaccination, you need to also preach that, okay, do things that can build your immune system as well, right? Because even when you get the vaccine, they say that you can still get COVID, right? So also preach that message, encouraging people to know, live a healthy lifestyle, include more fruits and vegetables and nuts and stuff like that in your diet. But also, because we live in Guyana, that might be an issue for some people. Like I said, the poverty that we have here, the fact that food prices are rising, vegetables the prices of vegetables and fruits and stuff. So although you might tell people this as well, oh, include more fruits and vegetables, can they afford to do that? Can most people afford to do that? So you see the dilemma we're in.
Have Guyanese become complacent when it comes to transparency, be it in the political arena, the flooding, the global
Oh,
health crisis, the unsolved murders, including teenagers Joel and Isaiah Henry and Harish Singh?
that comes back to the fact, our mentality, the unwillingness of so many people to change. Because yes, we have those unsolved murders of those boys from September, which was one of the most gruesome murders I've ever seen in Guyana. It still haunts me. But then if you look back to the period of like between 2002 and 2008, there are many unsolved murders from that period as well. We just sit comfortable and it's like it doesn't bother a lot of us. It's just like, oh, it happened, move on. I know people that disappeared and their relatives don't even know where they are. They like today because living in Buxton during that time, it was very, very difficult. To be quite honest, I'm still traumatized by some of the stuff that happened during that time living in Buxton. A lot of young men that I knew, that you grew up with or whatever, they would have joined with the Fine Man Gang or whatever the case may be. All of them are dead now. These are people that are dead in their 20s. Like I mentioned before, a lot of people, once the party they support or whatever is in power, they're not going to hold them accountable. Like I said, it goes back to that thing of, our unwillingness to change and hold these people accountable. The murders of those two boys, I think there was an expert that came in, and the Guyana police force would not even cooperate with the person. So what does that say to you? It says to me that they don't really want to solve these murders, right? And then the people that they arrested, people are saying that those aren't really the people that committed the crime. But, this is what they try to do to intelligent Guyanese. They try to say, okay, we're just going to collect two scapegoats or whatever and say, oh, pin the crime on them or whatever. And we're supposed to accept that and move on. No, but like I said, one of our main problems is that we cannot come together. If it doesn't affect me directly, I don't care. If it doesn't affect my family, I don't care. That's the attitude a lot of Guyanese have, and that's why we continue to be in the disasters that we're in. So yeah.
Sister Mosa Mathifa, you are an
Yeah.
award-winning artist, including working with Sister Margaret Lawrence on the radio serial drama Marundoy.
Mm-hmm.
When we chatted a few days ago, you sounded as if what you enjoy doing is being stifled. Is that a correct assumption?
That I enjoy being stifled?
That what you enjoy doing is being stifled.
Oh, to be quite honest, I'm not happy with the state of affairs when it comes to the artists in Guyana. I'm not happy at all. Personally, I feel like I've gotten to a point in my career where I'm wondering, okay, how can I progress farther in Guyana? And I find myself just getting to a dead end. It's like I can't really go farther because the environment does not exist to nurture me and a lot of other artists. It's always been a thing with the arts here that, it's not taken as seriously. Because people think, oh, that's just a hobby. That's just something you do on the side. It's not really a career or whatever. So a lot of artists, they, whether it's acting or writing or directing or whatever, they just do it on the side. With me, I've been one of the fortunate ones who have managed to make writing into a career in Guyana. But that's how I feel. I'm frustrated, not only for me, but for others, that just seeing the dreams of talented people just die because they're in Guyana, because they can't go any farther and they probably can't get out and, explore maybe the US or the UK or whatever, so that really saddens me.
About 3 years ago, you wrote, "My homeland is my inspiration." Has that changed?
That was a column I wrote 3 years ago. God, I can't even remember that. Guyana, I would rather live in Guyana than any place else. It's the reason I'm still in Guyana. I could have left Guyana years ago, but I love my country, and if we were to see, the systems being put in place where every Guyanese, at least is paid a living wage and we can all live comfortably here, and, the arts and the culture and stuff could prosper and all of that, I wouldn't go anywhere. I wouldn't leave Guyana ever. Guyana is a place, look, I went to the market this morning, I got fresh fruit, I was able to buy fish in the market and all of that. It's things like that I love. The fact that I could go to the seawall and sit and just enjoy the wind and all of that. I love my country. It's still my inspiration. It still is, because without Guyana, who would I be? Without the experiences that I've had here, who would I be? I wouldn't be the same Mosa. So Guyana has shaped me to be the person I am today. Some of the difficult experiences I use to inspire, writing. Right now, I'm actually in the process of finishing off my first novel.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Could you tell us how that novel is progressing? What is it about?
It is based on some events that happened in my family. It's fiction, but I use those events as inspiration. And basically, it's a metaphor. The novel is it's a love story and a horror story in one. And I say it's a metaphor for people of African descent returning to the spirituality of their ancestors, knowing that if you return to the spirituality of your ancestor, you would be in a much, much better place in this world. That's the long and short of it. I don't want to give away too much because I'm still in the process of writing the final chapters. The thing is, I could have finished writing the final chapters by now, but the thing with writers is not a case where you can just get up and write every day if you're not inspired to. You have to get into the spirit. When you're writing, it's like, you go into this zone and stuff, and you can't get into that zone every day because, you're busy looking after children, you're busy doing the work that pays you and all of that. So could have finished the novel by now, but it's getting done.
Film captures spontaneity forever. How is the film industry in Guyana?
What's happening now is that a few independent producers are producing films. Like I have this friend, Ray Wilshire. He's been working on films over the last few months. Not with a lot of funding. I think he got funding from somewhere to do one film, but a lot of it is just like friends, donating and stuff like that. So he's one of the people pushing. But I'm also a part of an organization called Cine Guyana. We were established either 2011 or 2012. What happened in 2011 is that a group of us, about 30 something of us in the arts, were in this crash course film workshop that ran over the span of 3 months. And we were trained in directing, everything to do with film, light, sound, everything. And from that, we made 8 short films. And since then, Cine Guyana has managed to make an additional 3 or 4 films. With Marundoy, we also made a film based on suicide about 3 or 4 years ago. At the moment, Cine Guyana, we're active because we have meetings and stuff like that. But in terms of working on a film, the last film we did was about 2 years ago. I think we released the last film that we did. So the issue with a lot of, like me, I have so many ideas for films and so on. But the issue comes back again to the fact that the arts are not supported here as they should be. So funding is at the root of the issues. Yes, you want to make films or whatever, but if you don't have any money to do it, and me, I don't like to ask people to work for free. A lot of people do it, but I don't like that because I don't want anybody to ask me to work for free. So that's it. That's it right now. A lot of people are doing things on an individual level, but in terms of there being a film industry in Guyana, it's not really the case at the moment.
My final question to you, Sister Mosa.
Yeah.
Do we need a new Guyana?
I just think we need to fix the one that we have now. Yeah, I just think we need to fix it. Will we ever get there? I'm not sure.
Who will be held responsible for that?
The people. It starts with the people. Like I said, it has to start with us. We have to push for this because at the end of the day, the people are more than the politicians. The politicians who are there and doing whatever they feel like, with their family and friends or whatever. We, the people, are more. So it starts with our mind and wanting to have the Guyana that we want. When I think about like 10 years from now or 15 years from now, and I wonder what Guyana would look like, I think to myself that we as Guyanese, I don't know what our place will be in this country with everybody that's coming in and stuff like that. The face of Guyana will look very different. We have Venezuelans coming, Brazilians, Cubans, Caucasians, everybody's coming here and, people are setting up business and stuff. And the thing is with that, with benefiting from the oil and stuff, if you don't have money, if you're not a Guyanese with wealth, that you can, probably set up some business or something to work that works for the oil industry and so on. You're not getting anything. What I think will happen in Guyana is that the people that already have money, you'll see their wealth growing, and the poorer people, they probably will get poorer or remain in the same condition. So I don't think we need a new Guyana. I just think we need a new mindset, and we need to hold our politicians accountable. We need to demand, we need to come together and demand what we want to see, what Guyana to be. But like I said, I'm not very hopeful that we will get to that place anytime soon.
Sister Mosa Mathifa Telford.
Yes.
Thank you for joining me on the Bobb-Semple International Podcast. Your artistic journey so far proves that everything you've been makes you who you are.
Thank you for inviting me, and it was a pleasure being here today. So thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for spending some time with us. If you are so inclined, you can subscribe to these podcasts and donate to them by clicking on the Support the Show button on the website. Please continue to protect yourself and your loved ones during this global pandemic by observing all protocols. Be safe, be strong, and be aware. I'm Bobb-Semple.